welcome, and regardless of whatever way that you are choosing to participate in the class today. And let's go ahead and get started. We've had some requests for some chest opening work and a little bit of backward bending work, so we'll work on that today. Also do some hip opening. So go ahead and start off in Swastikasana. I have been sitting on the bolster lately for a variety of reasons. One, I've had having some lower back pain, and so sitting up a little bit higher helps with that. But also it helps automatically, before I even do any of these adjustments with the legs, it automatically helps me release the groin. The only drawback is it's a little harder to turn the feet. So I actually have to turn the feet by pushing the feet down a little bit more to the floor. I can't quite reach down and get them. Also, you can see that I put a blanket between my feet and my knees since I'm sitting up a little bit higher, so the legs relax a little bit more readily. I'm not saying you have to sit up on this much height at all. You should sit on the height that feels right for you. I'm just sharing what feels right for me in this particular moment. Then go ahead and take your hands and turn your soles of your feet if they're readily available to you. Push on your thumb, the big toe base joint with your thumbs. But then if you actually move to the little space that's between the big toe base joint and the other base joints of the other toes, you can press down there and turn from there, and you get a little bit more turn of the foot, a little bit more full turn of the foot. Then use your hands and move your calf flesh up to the ceiling. Use your hands and turn the thigh flesh, working from the top of the thigh all the way down to the knee. So you'll feel your sitting bones draw in toward each other, and automatically you'll feel a lift come into the chest. Then lengthen up through your side ribs. Roll the shoulder bones back. Bring your shoulder blades together on your back, away from the neck and into the center of the body and up a little bit. So from the beginning, you feel that chest opening. You know, and the work of the chest opening is not really a work of the chest and the arms so much as it starts at the base of the toes, right? So that's why we press the feet down, move the sitting bones in. So from the base, we actually begin to get this lift. And then we get even more lift by working the actions of the upper body, the arms and the shoulder blades. All right, then keeping your chest well lifted and broad, close your eyes and fold your palms together. But fold them in such a way that the forearms are at the bottom of the rib cage, okay? And your thumbs are at the sternum bone. So that way you can actually use your arms to help lift the rib cage and the chest up a little bit more. And as also the other thing I've been noticing about working with that lift is it also lets my trapezius muscle release away from the neck a little bit more as well. Then having created this, let's say, external space, turn your awareness to the breath. As you inhale, make yourself taller from the tailbone all the way up through the head. And as you exhale, try and move the prana, or the energy of the breath, outward towards your side ribs and armpits. At first, as you do that, I almost think of it as being like just a vertical axis and a horizontal axis, but try and, after you've done just a few inhalations and exhalations, maybe working in a maybe one-dimensional feeling, see if you can begin to imagine that the torso is more like a column, like something you might see on a Greek temple. You know? Because you want to direct the breath not only up and out, but all around to all of the edges of your torso, and particularly into the back body. There's a lot of, in the back of the lungs, the back side of the lungs, there's a lot of capacity to move the prana there that we sometimes overlook. But basically what you're doing with this opening work with the breath is that you're filling the container, or the external container, with energy, with prana, with increased awareness. Then when you do that, you can draw your awareness from the outer world more deeply. That internal prana, or that internal spaciousness, if you will, I forgot to mute everyone. An internal spaciousness, if you will, acts like a magnet for the mind. so that the mind draws from the outer world toward the inner world, an inner architecture, or that inner landscape of you, the domain of yoga. Use your exhalations to take your awareness there. And having your awareness settle on that inner spaciousness, let's chant 3 Ams together from that space. Follow that sound with your mind. Follow the reverberation of the sound with your mind. And from that space, inhale once more. Keeping your chest well lifted and broad, bring your chin down to your chest and your hands down to your thighs with your palms up. And then raise your head and open your eyes. All right, and stretch your legs out into Dandasana, staff pose. You can either put a brick between your feet or keep your feet a little bit apart with an imaginary brick. I see some more people have popped on, so in a second I'll come up and say hello to everyone. But welcome, everyone. Press the big toes against the brick, and then when you do, that pressure of the big toes against the brick, that really engages the inner thighs and the quadriceps. The more you can move the other toes away from the big toe, both particularly moving the little toe away from the fourth toe, the more you're going to feel some firmness come into the outer hips. That firmness of the outer hip should result in a little lift coming into the chest. You can get more of that by putting your fingertips, or if you've got really long arms, your palms down on the floor. Actually, when I'm up higher, I can actually get my palms down, no problem. That's actually interesting. It's a little bit harder when I'm sitting on the floor. But either cup shape your fingers, which helps get the armpits open, or press your palms down firmly onto the floor. And then you'll feel that when you press the palms down or the fingertips down, you get even more lift coming into the chest, particularly lift up into the armpit region. All right, then bring the opposite leg in first, whichever leg you didn't bring for Swastikasana. And turn the soles of the feet up toward the ceiling. Pushing first on the big toe base joint with your thumb to turn, but then going to this little space between the big toe base joint and the base joint of the other toes. Put your thumb there and you'll find that you can get a little bit more full turning of the foot. Then I feel like it's turning closer to my ankle and more of the whole foot is going up toward the ceiling. It's really remarkable to me how much a difference just that little push can make. And turn your calves and externally rotate your legs. Okay? So that you feel those femur bones draw in and you feel your chest lift. Okay? So really starting, not so much the external rotation, but the lift of the chest, the length in the sides of the torso, and the shoulder blade actions. Already, yep. Yeah. Someone have a question? No? Okay. All right. Let's sit up straight and tall. What I was going to say is that sets up our backward bending intention from the very beginning. And stretch your legs out into Dandasana. Okay, someone's dog. Maybe it's my dog. Okay. Then stretch your legs out into Dandasana again. Spread across the soles of your feet. Okay. This time you can go ahead and bring your legs together. So Dandasana is really more a backward bending leg action, right? Because the thighs are turning in, or at least from the center channel, the thighs are turning in. So this time go ahead and take your hands and turn your thighs from the outside in. Okay? In Swastikasana, it's from the inside out. Here we've got from the outside in, and that also descends the groin. It releases the groin in a different way. Okay? But this is the leg action that you really need for pretty much every single back bend. There's some exceptions, like in some of the one-legged back bending poses, like Ekapada Rajakapotasana, you might have one leg in an external rotation and one leg in an internal rotation. But generally speaking, it's the internal rotation that we're after with backward bends. And again, lengthen up through your sides of your torso, roll the shoulder bones back, shoulder blades in, away from the neck, and into the center of the body and up a little bit so you feel that chest really lift. And then go ahead and push it, go ahead and get your palms flat this time for sure. So I don't think we'll actually do full Urdhva Dhanurasana today, but we'll work in that direction. But when you do end up having to push up into Urdhva Dhanurasana, a lot of people have, myself included, have difficulty with the pressure on the wrists. Okay? So even if you think about a pose like this, Dandasana, in terms of what it can give you for backward bending, it pushes some pressure on the wrist. So you can really push down with the hands, but also lift up out. So you're not just sinking into the wrist, but your wrist bones are actually moving up, okay? Up in to help that lift of the armpits. All right, now let's sit in the pose Virasana. Taking the height you need. I'm actually going to sit on a brick. And sit in Virasana. There's actually a fair bit of debate in yoga land about how the thighs turn in this particular pose. But before we work with the thighs, let's actually work with the feet a little bit. Okay, so I'm sitting up on some height, and one of the things that tends to happen when you sit up on height in Virasana is that the feet tend to get a little bit too close together. Okay. So for instance, I'm sitting on a brick, but then I have to move my feet actually out enough so that eventually my buttocks will go all the way down to the floor in this pose. Okay? So you have to move your feet out enough to accommodate the width of your buttocks. And you may find in doing that in and of itself, I'm just noticing, is helping my groin descend a bit. Then take your hands underneath the toes and pull your toes or your feet, your top of your foot straight back. Now here, you can push the big toe base joint down, but it's pretty readily down. Okay? But what we're actually need to do here more is get the little toe side of the foot to go down. Okay? So you can push on the little toe base joint and try and get it to go to the floor. Mine don't stay very well on their own, so I'm just going to keep my fingers on my little toes for a while. Then energetically move your outer ankle towards your inner ankle. And notice how that wants to, the little toes kind of want to come along for that, but don't do that. Keep pressing the little toe side of the foot down. Outer ankle toward inner ankle, outer shins in. Okay? And so hopefully your whole shin bone would be in contact with the floor, at least eventually. Mine isn't, I've got a giant gap, but eventually that's what would happen in a pose like Ustrasana. Okay. Then, in terms of your knees, what you really want is the knees to be making, you don't want to collapse too far in on this pose, like from the outside in, okay? But the groin still does descend downward, more like Dandasana. But you have to balance that by having the outer hips also descend down. Okay? So in Virasana, there's a little bit of internal rotation of the thighs and a little bit of external rotation. And check back in at your feet and see that you're still trying to spread the little toes, suck the ankles in, suck the outer calves in, and feel that lift coming all the way up into the chest. And reach your arms out in front of you, interlace your fingers, and turn your palms toward me for Parvatasana and Virasana. Extend from your elbows through your wrist bones. Keep your arms as straight as you can as you reach your arms all the way up above your head. I notice that my trapezius muscle kind of wants to go along with that lift of the arm. So I have to say trapezius release down, even as I'm stretching my wrists up toward the ceiling. So I made myself super, super tall. Then keep that length and then bring your arms down. Switch the grip of your fingers and turn your palms toward me. Extend from your elbows through your wrist bones so your arms get straighter. I'm going to this time proactively tell my trapezius muscle to release away from the neck, and hopefully it's going to stay there as I bring my arms up into Parvatasana and Virasana. It worked a little bit, but I still have to encourage the trapezius to go down as I let my shoulder bones go along with the lift upward toward my wrists and toward the ceiling. And then release your fingers and come back down and check back in at your feet. Did your feet lose any of that spreading? Did you lose any of your ankle action, any of your calf action? And so go ahead and reestablish that. You know how when we go up into Urdhva Hastasana, a lot of times we'll use the other arm to turn. We've done that a lot of times. Yeah. I've recently been playing with similar to the actions that we do in the leg in terms of using the arm and hand in different places. Go ahead and this time, go ahead and do what we normally do. Reach your right arm up, squeeze the middle of your arm with your other hand, and turn the tricep from the outside in. And that is standard arm backward bending action. But now look what happens when you bring your hand down to the armpit area and turn from there. Watch what happens in your humerus bone and your shoulder blade when you turn from the outside in at the base of that. And you feel how it goes deeper in the turn? Then move up one to the middle with your hand and turn again. And you'll feel a different action in your shoulder blade arising. Then move up one more hand's length so that you're kind of closer to your elbow and turn from there. Then push your arm back behind your ear. Keep turning your tricep from the outside in as you bend your arm and pat yourself on the top of the shoulder blade. And use your hand on your elbow and move the arm even further back. Turn again from the base of the arm, from the middle of the arm, and from the elbow, and see if you can go a little bit further back. And reach that arm up and reach the arm down. Yeah, so backward bending actions. All right, so reach up into Urdhva Hastasana with the other arm. Do what we normally do and just squeeze right at the middle of your upper arm and turn from the outside in. It's good action, it works. But look how much more thoroughly we can turn the humerus bone in the socket and engage the shoulders if we actually start lower. So lower in this sense, it's actually higher on the arm, but it's actually lower with respect to the position that it's in, and turn from the outside in. And when I do that, I really feel that my shoulder blades just get more engaged in that action. Then I go back to the regular place and turn from the outside in. Then I go up closer to the elbow and turn from the outside in. And each one of those stops, let's say along the upper arm, has a different effect on the shoulder blade and the armpit and the humerus bone. Then push the arm back, so hopefully it goes behind your ear, or at least next to your ear. Keep turning the tricep from the outside in as you bend your elbow. Then take your hand on your elbow and you can push back a little bit more. Walk your fingers down your shoulder blades and then check back in. Make sure you haven't lost that turn of the tricep from the armpit, from the middle of the upper arm, and right by the elbow. All of that still has to keep on turning in. Then re-straighten the arm and see if you can bring your arms into Urdhva Namaskarasana. Join those palms together, particularly try and join the wrist bone together, and you'll feel that helps you get your trapezius muscle to release a little bit away. Then release your hands all the way down. And just feel the effect on your back, particularly on the upper shoulder blades. That's where I'm really feeling it. Feel like just doing just those basic things of getting right action and right movement into the organs of action has an enormous effect. All right, then come on up to your hands and your knees. Getting ready for Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. Oh, I know what happened. I'm sorry, I forgot to spotlight my video. You can be on your hands and your knees still. Okay. This will also give me time. Oh, Pratima, welcome. Hello. And hi, Kristen, welcome. All right, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Getting ready to do downward facing dog. So let's do those same arm actions before we go up here. Okay, so you're going to take your left hand, put it on your right upper arm, and turn from the outside in and walk down your arm. Now this one you have to be a little careful near the elbow because you don't want to overturn the elbow here, particularly those of us who tend to hyperextend. Okay, so then push through the thumb and the first finger. Then do the same thing with the other arm. So really go right up near that armpit and turn. Okay, and go to the middle of the arm and turn. Then I would leave the elbow alone. Okay. Then look forward, because when you look forward, you can feel your thoracic spine goes in already, but keep pressing through the thumb and the first finger and turn your toes under as you push back into Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. And see what your dog feels like today. Yeah. Do you notice the effect of the work that you've already done, for instance? I have been, like everyone, watching the news and my Facebook feed and everything, and I've been just noticing all the calls to action, the calls to self-observation and reflection, and it got me thinking about yoga as a means for cultivating that capacity, because we have to actually, we have our list of things that we're going to do, like here's our, year of poses we're going to do, year of anti-racist work, whatever, and a lot of times we just rush in to impose like a particular action on the pose, rather than taking the time to observe, to see what actually more is needed. More is needed. I'm not saying we shouldn't act, okay? But do take the time to check in. What is this dog doing today? Okay. Then I can say, you know what? I could do more work in the legs. So I'm going to lift up under the balls of my feet and observe that that actually already has some good effect, that it lifts my quadriceps, it lifts my inner thighs. And then I roll over the balls of the feet and really reach from the arches through the heels and reach way, way, way back. And now I can feel my legs are more involved in the organization of the pose. All right, then walk forward till your feet are right underneath your hips. Place your hands on your pelvic bones. Roll your shoulder bones back. I'm having a hard time getting this going. And then come all the way up to standing. All right, and then stand in Tadasana. And think about going towards some backward bends from Tadasana. What does Tadasana give you that you can use in terms of backward bending actions? Well, it gives you the legs, right? You've got that slight internal rotation that releases the groin. This is also where you learn to move your buttock flesh down toward your heels. But there is a small amount of debate about, sometimes you actually let the tailbone lift up to get a little bit more of a lower back bend. But generally speaking, you want to have broadness across the lower back. Lengthen up through your side ribs and roll those shoulder bones back. And when you do that, observe how you automatically get some lift and that spreading coming into the collarbones. And shoulder blade action is clearly backward bending work. Shoulder blades in, away from the neck, and in and up a little bit, and you'll feel more lift coming up into the sides of the upper. I keep on saying sides, but what I really mean is top of the collarbone, but out to the sides. Okay. And that width across the front body corresponds with bringing your shoulder blades a little bit more in. And then stretch through your ring fingers. All right, we already did the Urdhva Hastasana, the overhead plane, Urdhva Hastasana and Urdhva Badanguliasana. So now let's work a little bit in behind the back plane. Okay. Getting more ready for some back bends. So go ahead and interlace your fingers behind you. Keep your elbows bent first because that really helps you get lift up into the armpits for most people. And then when you got that lift, move your shoulder blades in, away from the neck and into the center of the body and up a little bit, then straighten your arms. There are lots of ways to work with the arms behind your back. Okay? One of them is that you can bring the thumbs where they're right in line with the tailbone and extend the knuckles down toward the floor. So when you work in that downward action pulling with the arms, you should feel your trapezius muscles release away from the neck. I also feel my outer shoulder blades draw in a little bit more. Then you can also move your arms up. And you can move them up kind of any amount, but you don't want the shoulders to crunch forward. See, that's non-backward bending. So I want to use my arms to actually pull back, almost like I had a rope wall. And I was holding onto the rope of the wall, and I was extending my torso forward. And now I can feel my shoulder blades draw in even more. But more importantly, I begin to get the separation of the sides of the chest and the armpits from the arms, so that I'm creating space there. All right, now let's switch the grip and do the other side. So interlace your fingers the opposite other side, just opposite interlace. Keep your elbows bent first. And keep them a little bit wide. For most people, that makes it easier to get that lift going all the way up into the armpits first. Then trapezius, shoulder blades in, away from the neck and up a little bit and out. And then stretch your arms out. And then first bring your thumbs down along the side of your sacrum and extend your knuckles down to the floor. And like someone was pulling on your wrist. And let the trapezius muscle release away. Observe how the outer upper shoulder blades come in as well. Then reach your arms back, away from your back at a diagonal, and extend through the wrist bones again. So the arms are very, very actively reaching back. And you're moving your chest forward, away from that armpit work. Well, actually, we can do this when we lay down on the floor and do Shalabhasana. That's what, the more you can move your arms back. This is really like a standing Shalabhasana, if you the Arab version of Shalabhasana. For Shalabhasana, your arms would just be straight, going back like Urdhva Hastasana arms. All right, then release your arms, and then reach your arms all the way up above your head for Urdhva Hastasana again. And then observe. How is this Urdhva Hastasana feeling? Is it a little bit freer? Yeah, there's another belly down back bend that's called Makarasana. And for it, you have to interlace your fingers behind your head like headstand. And then move your elbows in close, again, like headstand. And then you have to imagine, or even you can take your hand, put it on the lower arm and turn, middle arm, elbow arm and turn, and you'll feel that backward bending action coming in your shoulder blade. Then do the same thing with the other hand, right by the armpit, right by the middle of the arm, right by the elbow, and you'll feel opening in the side ribs and more opening in the shoulder blades. Then bring both of the hands together and then do that work with the arms with your imagination or with your memory. So that's the Makarasana action, right? So Shalabhasana, we've got our arms back behind our back, which is basically like Urdhva Hastasana, except that your arms are back behind you. You've got Makarasana, that's here. We also have like poses like Dhanurasana, where you have to actually grip your ankles. So let's pretend and do that one here. So you're going to have your hand be at about your ankle grip. Okay? And you're going to reach back with your arms in this position and reach your hands way, way, way back. So you're doing basically like a standing, either standing Ustrasana or a standing Dhanurasana. And then that was actually hard work. Okay? So I'm pretending that I'm gripping my ankles, the sides of my hands. And even that pretending of the grip actually begins to set up some work in my shoulder blades and my armpits. Differently than if I just have my hands straight. So grip and feel what happens. And then reach those fingers more and more back and feel what happens. And release your arms back up to Urdhva Hastasana, and it should be a little bit easier. Keep turning the triceps from the outside in and reach through your ring fingers. Turn your palms down and push through the air element so that you feel that lift coming all the way into the chest. Okay? All right. We'll do some belly down back bends now. I need to set things up a little bit differently. Oh, I'm missing my crosswise mat. That's what's going on. I think it will be probably pretty hard for you to see me while you're doing the pose. So I don't want you to strain your necks while you're in the pose. So if you want to, I don't know, if you want to change the angle of the camera, so I would suggest maybe doing these where you're facing the screen so you don't have to turn your head if you're tempted to look toward me. Oh, you know, there's one more back bend that's worth talking about. It's kind of a back bend. And that is before we lay down, and that is a Chaturanga Dandasana, right? Where your arms are in the forward plane, and also Bhujangasana. But let's just do, before we lay down on the floor, let's do like a standing Chaturanga Dandasana. So have your leg actions going, buttocks toward your heels, bring your fingertips right in front of your shoulders. Move your shoulder blades in, away from the neck, and into the center of the body a little bit. And then pretend that you're going to push yourself up. Okay? So push into an imaginary wall. And what I notice when I do that is that pushing action, even though I'm not pushing against anything, actually brings my shoulder blades in a little bit more. Also in Chaturanga, you're looking straight ahead, or you're looking, when you're on the floor, straight ahead. So the equivalent here would be looking up toward the ceiling. And observe when you look up toward the ceiling, doesn't that bring the thoracic spine in a little bit more? And then release and come down. Okay, so I'm gonna lie down on the floor. I'm gonna move the thing a little bit closer so I am more visible. I had to try this out. I can see why I'm not doing that many belly down back bends in this class, because it's hard to sit it up to see. All right, now you can be. All right, even though I told y'all to look from the front, I actually think it will be better for me to demonstrate from the side. Okay, so I'm gonna actually demonstrate each one so you can see, so and give you the opportunity to watch so you don't have to watch as carefully when you're in the pose. Well, let's get the hard one over with, which is Chaturanga Dandasana. All right, so I'm gonna lie down on the floor, turn my toes under, place my fingertips right underneath my shoulders, roll the shoulder bones back, shoulder blades in, away from the neck, into the center of the body and up a little bit, look forward. Then I press my hands down, exhale, and hover. Hey, Chaturanga Dandasana. So it's your turn. You'll give it 3 goes, okay? I'm gonna turn it to gallery view so I can take a little bit of a look at you. So the first thing is lie down on the floor, not so much to correct, but so I can kind of pace my, instructions, seeing what you're doing. Okay, those of you I can see. Okay, so first lie down on the floor, turn your thighs so that your inner thighs go up toward the ceiling. Tuck your toes under as much as you can so that your feet are straight. Marcia, you can do it standing if it's too much on your wrists. Okay, then roll your shoulder bones back. Move your shoulder blades in, away from the neck, and into the center of the body and up a little bit. Now look forward. Okay. You've got everything set up. Straighten your legs as much as you can. That's it. Very good, Melinda. And then push down with your hands and draw your abdomen in and see if you can come up and hover. Extend back through your inner heels. Not bad. And then release and come down. That went well, everyone that I saw. Okay. All right, and then let's try it 2 more times. Okay, so turn your thighs I really like to point out that you get the work of the legs set first. Okay, so you can be, the legs are not really touching the floor except for the toes turned under. Then roll your shoulder bones back. Bring your shoulder blades in, away from the neck and into the center of the body and up a little bit. So you're almost already off the floor. Then look forward. Okay. All right, then move your buttocks toward your heels. Exhale, push down with your hands and draw your abdomen in and come up and hover. Not bad. And then release and come down. Then one more time. So I think the trick of Chaturanga Dandasana really is getting everything set first, because then there's only a tiny little bit that you have to do to get off the floor. So turn your thighs, turn your toes under, and then that way also, even if you can't push up, you know all the work that needs to happen. So you're getting like 90% of the benefit of the pose if you really set up these actions, even if you can't get up. Then roll your shoulder bones back, do your shoulder blade actions, look forward, observe what happens in the chest, then move your buttocks to your heels, draw your abdomen in and up and push down with your feet and lift up a little bit and hover. Good. And then turn your toes under and push back into downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. And observe, how does this downward facing dog feel as opposed to the downward facing dog? Not as opposed to, but just in comparison to, okay? Just because things are different does not mean that they have to be in opposition with each other. Good lesson for life. All right, so what I feel when I go into my downward facing dog after having done my Chaturanga Dandasanas is I feel more opening in my armpits, which actually strikes me as odd given that I've had my elbows bent and my arms in closer, okay? But that is what I'm observing. Okay? So I will ponder why that's the case. I'm also feeling that my heels, without me doing anything at all, have gotten a little bit more toward the floor, which makes me think that something in that toe turning under is very helpful for the actions of the leg. So having made that observation, go ahead and come way, way, way up on your toes again. Let your heels actually become very high, okay? So that your foot actually looks like a Chaturanga Dandasana foot. Okay? There's something in that action of to really keeping the toes turned under and engaging the legs had a good effect on my downward facing dog. And keep pushing your hands down and forward, reach back through your, arches, and extend from the front heel to the back heel, and see if you can get even a little bit more engagement from the legs. All right, and then bend your knees and come down, and then go ahead and get it, whatever you're using for a yoga strap, okay? And then you can watch the next video. Hello. All right, so Shalabhasana, that's the one with your arms behind your back. We're gonna do that one first just because I think it's easier. I like to make a loop with the strap, but if your strap doesn't have a loop, it's okay. You can just hold the strap, okay? So I have a loop with the strap that I'm gonna put on my wrist bones like this, right? But actually, maybe we'll do it both ways so you can feel the difference. So there's the loop work, but it also is beneficial just to pull, okay? So I'm gonna do loop first, then pull, right? Now, Shalabhasana, I lie down on the floor. Oh my gosh, I did not plan this well. You know what I'm gonna do? Because I'm wearing black and I'm laying on a black mat, so I've just basically fallen into oblivion in terms of what you can see. So what I'm gonna do instead is make my mat be white. Isn't that miraculous that I can do that by putting a blanket over it? Maybe not miraculous, but that's a good, a good observation, example of what I was talking about. is I actually have to observe what is the case. Okay? I made the quote unquote mistake of wearing dark clothing because I like it better for a variety of reasons. But then when I was laying on my mat, I was like, wow, you cannot see anything. I'm just like part of the mat. So then having made that observation, I had to act, okay? But I didn't act without observing first and thinking about what actually is needful action. So now hopefully you can actually see me a little bit better because I changed the setup. So I have to turn my thighs in the same way as we did in Chaturanga, but the feet are flat on the floor, tops of the feet are on the floor like Virasana. Okay. Then I'm going to take the strap and put it around my wrists. Now, before I even go up, I'm going to do shoulder bones back, shoulder blades in, away from the neck, and in and up a little bit, and I've already gotten up. And I'm pushing my wrists into the strap. Then I'm practically up as much as I need to be. Then I'm going to add my legs and extend back through my inner knee to my inner heel and reach both the arms and the legs back for Shalabhasana. Okay? So that's what it looks like. We're going to do 3 of those. Actually, just 2 because I want to do the different hand position. All right. I'm going to switch to gallery view for a second again, just so I can see you. Okay. All right, so lie down on the floor. Turn your toes under. I said turn your toes under, but I didn't mean that. I meant turn the tops of the feet so they're flat on the floor. So we're doing Shalabhasana, not Chaturanga Dandasana. Okay, so, but remember, the tops of the feet on the floor, it really is a Virasana foot, okay? So remember how I said to spread your toes when we were in Virasana and how to move the outer ankle toward the inner ankle? Do all of those things. Okay? Then before you even try and go up far, let your shoulder bones release back. Hey, so we're not doing Chaturanga again. We're doing Shalabhasana. So some of you have your elbows bent. They should be straight back behind you. Okay? And yeah, and ideally, if you don't have a strap, it's fine. You just reach your arms way, way, way back behind you. Okay. All right, now roll your shoulder bones back. Okay. Move your shoulder blades in, away from the neck and into the center of the body and up a little bit. And you're already practically in the pose. And then reach your legs up. Lift your legs up. Now extend back through your legs and pull back with your arms, like we were doing in that standing version of standing Shalabhasana. Yeah, good. And then lower yourself all the way down. All right. Now, actually, we're going to hold onto the strap. Okay, so rather, you can still hold on to the sides of the loop, but this will be preparation for Ustrasana. And so if you want to take a look before you go again, I'm back on spotlight view. Okay, so now I'm holding onto the strap. Okay? And I'm holding with my palms actually going up toward the ceiling. I turn my thighs in, and then I reach back with my arms. Reach back, and that brings me up. Shoulder bones back, shoulder blades back, look forward. Then I add my legs. Now I'm pulling the strap apart, but I'm also pushing the strap back and away from me. And it has a slightly different effect in the opening of the chest than when I had my hands looped. All right, and then release and come down. We're going to do another downward facing dog. And your mission in this downward facing dog, before you, go into the pose. Okay, so you're going to go into the pose. And before you change anything besides having gotten into the pose, take a moment to observe. Observe what is the case. And then see if you can articulate to yourself what is the case. Maybe you feel some good effect. I did. For some reason, that work made my palms go down more fully. Okay. I still felt increased action in my side ribs. But I lost a little bit of something in the legs that I had right after I did Chaturanga Dandasana. So I'm going to go up again on the balls of my feet so that my feet become more like Chaturanga. That engages the quadriceps and engages and lifts the inner thighs. And then keep pushing your hands down and forward as you roll over the balls of the feet and reach your heels way, way, way back behind you. Reach from the arch. Reach from the front heel to the back heel. Even go from the front ankle to the back ankle and see if that helps you get a little bit more deeply into the pose. Great. Then you can bend your knees and come down. Or bend your knees and come down. All right, the next one we're gonna do is, remember when we had our hands above our head in the Makarasana? That's what we're gonna do next, lying down. But otherwise, the leg actions are the same as Shalabhasana. But I really want you to observe the different feeling in the chest and the shoulder blades that comes from the hands behind the head. And I'm gonna do one, okay? So if you wanna watch the demo, you can, or if you just wanna get an extra one in, I can't really see, so you don't have to watch the demo. I'm taking my glasses off. See, I can't even see you. But I get my legs organized first. Turn the thighs in, spread the toes, suck from the outer ankle toward the inner ankle. Then I interlace my fingers behind my head and lift up. Then I have to think, like I had those three hands, or the three hand positions. I turn from the upper arm, the middle arm, right by the elbow, and then I extend from the bottom of the shoulder blades through the elbows and come down and rest. Okay. We'll do that twice so you can switch the interlace. Those of you who did it once already, you just get a bonus one. Okay, so I'm switching back from spotlight. Again, not so I can spy on you, but so I can actually pace my instructions a little bit with where you are with respect to who I can see. Okay, so lie down on the floor. Turn your thighs from the outside in. Spread your toes and move your outer ankles toward your inner ankles. Then interlace your fingers and put them behind your head in headstand position. Okay. Then lift your legs up and lift your torso up. Okay. Then you have to bring your elbows in a little bit more like they're in Shirshasana position. And then pretend like you had one hand on your upper arm and turn it. Then from the middle of the upper arm. And then from the elbow part of the upper arm. And each of those has an effect on the shoulder. Now from your bottom tips of your shoulder blades, like we did at the beginning of class, lift up and out and see if you can get up a little bit higher. Good, and then lower yourself down. Rest for a second, but notice which finger you have on top, because we're gonna do the opposite interlace. And now switch the grip of your fingers. The opposite fingers on top. Go back and get your legs reorganized. Turn the thighs in, extend from the inner knee, from the inner heel. Spread your toes and suck your outer ankle toward your inner ankle. Now lift your legs up and lift up with your upper body. Very good adjustment. A couple of you did your elbows in a little bit closer. And then keep turning those arms and notice the effect. Notice from the arm turn from the humerus bone, from the middle of the arm, from right near the elbow, and then from the tips of your shoulder blades, extend through the armpits up through the elbows. So you really come into a nice Makarasana. And then release and come down. And I bet you will not be surprised to hear what your next task is. Your next task is to do downward facing dog. Okay. The additional task is to just come into downward facing dog and observe what is the case. Observe what effect your good, well-intentioned action of Makarasana has on your downward facing dog. Did it help the overall situation? And so for me, I definitely feel that that brought my thoracic spine in significantly more. It actually is also, I maintained a little bit better for some reason my good leg action. But where I'm really noticing that effect here is in the thoracic spine. All right, so we've got one more to do. Actually, two more to do. before we move into the restorative inversion part of class. The first one we're going to do is Dhanurasana because we're still down on our bellies. All right. And I'm going to, can you see me? There is the nice white mat on the black surface. All right. So I'm going to turn my thighs again. But this time, you know, Shalabhasana, arms were straight and legs were straight. Okay? Makarasana, legs were straight, but arm was bent. Okay? Dhanurasana, arms are straight, but legs are bent. Okay? So we're just changing that orientation. Okay? Generally speaking, things are harder when the limb is bent. I'm just warning you. So when I bend the legs, I have to work a little bit more to turn the thighs in. Okay? Then I'm going to reach back and get my ankles. Remember when we were standing and we were holding? Okay? So now I've got my ankles. Now the good thing is I can really use my hands to push the outer ankle toward the inner ankle. I'm getting everything organized first. I'm really not even trying to push up. Just turning my thighs, extending from the inner knees to the inner heels, kicking back a little bit, shoulder blade actions, and then I kick up with my feet, but also back with my feet. Up, and I use my hands to help the lift up, and then I pull back. Or I kick with my legs and let my arms be pulled back so that they work together to create the unity of the pose. And if that is not a good metaphor for social unrest, I do not know what is. All right, so let us all work together to make the change we want to see in our Dhanurasana. Interestingly, Dhanurasana means bow pose. Okay, Arjuna was, good with the bow. Arjuna in the Gita was afraid to act because of all of the chaos of the circumstance of his life. What does Krishna consistently teach him? Act anyway, but act with discernment. Okay? Skillful action. That's what we're after. Okay, so lie on the floor, and I'm just looking at you so I can observe what is the case. Actually, I'm more doing it for my own benefit of trying to pace my instructions without being able to see you that well. Okay, so bend your knees, reach back and get your ankles. If you can't get your ankles, then you would put a strap around your ankles. Okay. Turn your thighs in. Now notice that you've got your hands on your outer ankles, so that should help you do what you know is good ankle action. Move your outer ankles toward your inner ankles. Okay. And then you can begin, before you even lift your legs up, kick your feet back a little bit and let yourself be pulled a little bit into the pose. Then do your own shoulder bone action. Do your own shoulder blade action. There you go. Now kick back a little bit harder. Now comes the up. So pull up with your hands and your feet together. Okay. Well, and actually see what happens when you just pull with your hands. See what happens when you just pull with your feet. See what happens when you do both together. Isn't it much better when you do both together? All right, now let your feet do a little bit more of the work and kick your feet back and let your arms go along for the ride so that you actually get more opening in the chest. Beautiful. And then release and come down. All right, one more. Dhanurasana. I read an interesting thing today that also relates to yoga practice and social justice work or anti-racist work that mentioned that, this is a practice, right? It's not something that we just do once, pay a little bit money once, and then we go on and feel better about ourselves. But you actually have to practice this every day. And I thought to myself again, you know what? Isn't yoga such an amazing preparation for that kind of work? We actually already have a sense of practice, right? And so we know what it's like to practice over and over and over again, and change does come. Even if it feels like change is not coming anytime soon, change does come. And then all of a sudden you're in a different space with the pose. So too, changing and making the world be the world that we want it to be. So with that idea in mind, let us do one more Dhanurasana. And I'm actually gonna do it with you this time. Yeah. And I'll talk you through it based on my own experience of being in the pose. So I'm back on Spotlight. I have moved my screen so I can see my blanket, which hopefully means you can. All right, so I'm on my abdomen, And before I bend my legs, what I do is I actually turn my thighs from the outside in. I move my buttock flesh toward the back of my knees. Then I bend my legs. Then I reach back and get my tops of my feet / ankles. And then even in doing that, I realized, wow, that's actually started the backward bend in my upper body. Yeah. Then I'm gonna move before I lift my thighs up, I'm gonna kick my feet back a little bit, and that lifts my chest some. Now I do my own shoulder bones, my own shoulder blade actions, in, away from the neck, and up a little bit. Now I'm gonna lift the legs up. So I'm gonna lift the legs up with the hands. I'm gonna lift the legs up by lifting the legs themselves up. Then I'm gonna lift up the legs with the leg action and with the arm action and do my shoulder blade actions again, and it gets even better. Then I'm gonna kick my feet back and go along for the ride and lift up again and see if I can get even a better pose. And then release, come down, do a downward facing dog. So you can observe the effect of your Dhanurasana. So what I feel is the cumulative effect of all of this is my hands are definitely more pressed into the floor. Sorry. Hopefully it will go away. It's only a spam list. All right. And I felt the same thoracic spine action, and I felt my heels go on the floor. So I have a much more overall integrated action of my downward facing dog from having done those back bends. All right, here's a grand finale back bend called Ustrasana. It's actually characterized in Line and Yoga with the standing poses because you're standing on your shins. I'm actually going to do it with a bolster on the back of my shins. Partly for a variety of reasons. One, I could stop in this intermediate stage and really sort out the actions. So what are the actions? Outer, be on the tops of the feet, outer ankle toward inner ankle. I turn the thighs in. I push down with my hands and lift up with the armpits, shoulder blades, and then I reach the head back. All right, so you don't have to use the bolster, it's just kind of nice. The other thing the bolster really does for me is when I'm really pushing down with that bolster, it helps really press my shins down into the floor. This is a very large bolster. If you weren't using the bolster, you could roll some blankets. There's also a version here where you can turn your toes under and reach back, but I don't personally like to do that one that much because you lose any connection with the shin. Okay. So if you want to go all the way to the feet, feel free. I'm doing it with the bolster. Okay, so if you're using the bolster, sit on the bolster. If you're not using the bolster, go ahead and sit on your feet before you come up. Okay. So here, I'm taking the weight of the bolster and I'm letting that weight of the bolster and the weight of my buttocks get rid of this gap that is persistently there between my shin and the, I'll show you what I mean. I'm gonna be a little bit closer. Okay, so see why I don't actually like this one. Even though your heels are easier to reach, you lose the ability to get any connection with your shin bone. And for me, it's kind of harder on my knees. So if I do it without anything, I'm gonna exaggerate a little bit. See how there's a gap between my top of my ankle and the floor? I want that to be gone. Okay? And I can't get it completely gone. Well, actually it's doing pretty well right now after sitting there, but I think the reason it's doing so well is because I really sat with this. It's a heavy bolster and I'm sitting on it. Yeah. And I'm knowing my intention of doing this action is that I want my shin bone to be flatter on the floor. Because when it's flatter on the floor, everything lifts up and I get more lift coming into my chest. Okay? So then the whole system works well, right? So that's why I want my shin bone down, okay? And it did actually work, okay? So now I'm gonna lift up so you can see. Okay, so ready? I'm gonna do it with you. Extend from the big toe side of your foot and see, can you get that shin bone to press down? Spread your toes. Does that help the shin bone pressing down? Outer ankle toward inner ankle. Does that help the shin bone press? Now press your shin bones down and feel how that starts the action of lifting up through the back as much as you can. And roll your shoulder bones back. Put your hands on your hips at first. Shoulder blades in, away from the neck, and in and up a little bit. And look how much you're already back arching. Now look up toward the ceiling. So you're already practically in the pose. Check back in. Did you leave out the work of the legs and re-engage the work of the legs? Then go ahead and reach back to whatever you're reaching back to. Whether that's the bolster on your fingertips, or that's with your fingertips pointing back on your heels. And then just like we did in Dandasana, press down with your hands and up into the armpits and see if you can get even more lift and opening coming into the chest. And then come up and sit back down. And that was the grand finale back then. All right. So let's do a Chatushpadasana, which is basically the same pose, except you're laying down on your back now. Now you're on your feet. So everything, Chatushpadasana is really also a back bend. Sometimes we use it as a prep for Urdhva. Sometimes we use it as a prep for shoulder stand, but it's really a pretty active pose. So what have we learned? Outer ankle toward inner from all of our work, right? Because that's another part of working for social change, is that you actually have to assess what have you learned from all of the actions that you're engaged in. Okay? Well, I've learned that it's helpful to move my outer ankle toward my inner ankle, but it is possible to do that too much. So you have to make sure that you're not collapsing inward. Okay? I've learned that I want to press through the big toe side of my foot and spread my toes. I've learned that I move my outer calves in. What else have I learned about the upper body? Before you even try and go up, tuck your shoulders underneath you. Move your shoulder blades in, away from the neck, and into the center of the body and up a little bit. Now let's lift up. Press the feet down and lift your buttocks up. One thing I haven't been mentioning much in this backward bending class is the hamstrings and buttocks working toward each other. So check in and see if they're really engaged in the action. Then interlace your fingers if you can underneath your buttocks, and that walks the shoulder blades in more. Shoulder blades in, away from the neck, and in and up a little bit. Now push your feet down and lift the buttocks up high. Push your arms down and lift the chest up high. Feel how nice that feels on the neck. Also soothing in the brain. Notice which finger you have on top and come down, but try to maintain the ground that you gained. You know, that's another thing I've been thinking about. It looked like we had maintained, or we gained a lot of ground in the civil rights movement, and we have in a lot of ways. Obama's speech was really helpful in that. People say it feels like it's just the same thing, but he says, no, it's not. There's much more widespread support for social change. All right, my chest has widespread support for social change. So it wants to do it again, because it's a repeated practice in action to change the world, to be the Chatushpadasana that you want to be. Okay, so press your feet down and lift your buttocks up high. Make sure ankles are working. Make sure your hamstrings and buttocks are working. Make sure every part is doing its job. Then tuck your shoulders underneath you a little bit more. Before you interlace your hands, shoulders in, away from the neck, and in and up a little bit. And look what already happened. Then add your arms, but switch the interlace. When you add your arms, you have to tuck a little bit more. Now reach your fingers toward your heels. We didn't do that last time. There's always more work to do. Lift your buttocks up higher. Tuck your shoulders underneath you. One more shoulder blade time. Shoulder blades in, away from the neck, and in and up a little bit. So you really get this nice lift. Make sure your legs are still working and they haven't slacked off on their job. And then release and lower yourself all the way down and feel the effect of your work. Feels very nice to me. I can really feel the prana moving much more energetically through my body. All right, let us do Ardha Jatara Parivartanasana, and then we'll do legs up the wall pose for our final pose. Okay, so Ardha Jatara Parivartanasana. I don't know that we've done this one together on Zoom yet. I've got this cross-shaped situation with my mat, which is really nice because I can hold on to the horizontal mat right now. Or actually, I'm horizontal, so I'm holding on to quote-unquote the vertical mat. And I'm going to move my shoulder blades in, but I'm going to pull the sticky mat apart. Because when I pull my knees in, do all the same leg actions, outer ankle, shin, extend from the inner knee through the inner heel, thighs are turning in. I'm going to move my knees up and over toward the center of my arm, toward my armpit as much as I can. I aim to the armpit, I probably won't get there. And then I exhale and move the abdomen in the opposite direction. And I pull with my left hand as I'm moving to the right. And then I bring my legs back up, and then I go to the other side. Proactively, I'm going to pull to the right as I go to the left. I'm going to exhale and squeeze my legs together and move my knees up into the armpits as much as I can. Keep squeezing. And then I come back to the center, put my feet down. I'm going to cross my right leg over my left leg and just do a nice reclining twist. Feels wonderful. I really am enjoying the sensation right in the center part of my pelvic bone. So I cross my right leg over my left and I move my legs to the right, okay? And where I feel it is on the left pelvic bone. It doesn't feel good to me to go the other direction with this cross. It might feel good to you. If it does, you can do it. But I'm going to bring my feet back to the center, and now I'm going to cross my left leg over my right. And then I'm going to move my legs to the left. I can push the knee down a little bit more with my left, what is it called? Calf, outer calf. And when I do that, I feel nice sensation on the inner part of my pelvic bone. And I also feel a nice stretch of my outer hip. And I feel a nice release in my lower back, which feels really quite wonderful. Then I'm going to come back to the center, cross one ankle, my right ankle over my left knee, and pull up a little bit, and that releases the outer hip muscles. And then lower your foot down and switch and do the other side. And then pull up. Oh, that felt good. All right, then hoist yourself and do legs up the wall pose. If your back is bothering you at all, and even just I'd say really after backward bends in general, it's probably better to just do it with your back flat on the floor so you really get some nice length in the back. Because when you elevate your buttocks in legs up the wall pose, there is a backward bend, okay? And so now we've done backward bends all class. And so we want to actually lengthen the spine and broaden the spine. And that's actually easier to do if you aren't up on height. But having said that, you have to observe your own situation. And you have to say, you know, I hear what she's saying, and she thinks that that is a good approach. But something in me, okay, says that I would actually benefit more from having a little bit more release in the groin or a little bit more Jalandhara Bandha. Like maybe you're feeling a little agitated, and so that more Jalandhara Bandha would be good for that. So, you know, it's not like one thing always, right? What works in one situation doesn't always work in the other situation, right? So we can have general guidelines about how to do things, but we also have to be sensitive to the circumstance that we're in. So do what feels right to you. Close your eyes. Let your eyes release into the back of your head. Let your tongue release away from the roof of your mouth. Unclench your jaw. Let the back of the throat release. Let the sides of the throat release. Let the base of the throat release. Let your ears draw inward. Completely relax the features of your face. Become quiet within. So we haven't been doing a lot of these poses so much in this class, and truthfully, part of it is it's just harder to navigate the setup, as you aptly observed today. But it's, you know, I should recognize that, deal with it, and do them more, because I'm feeling that it's a different energetic that's needed. It's a nice balance to the stability of the standing poses that we've been doing a lot, and the soothing effect of the immunity and the inversion work that we've been doing a lot. And so this is more energizing, right? And so probably as you're here, you'll feel a different movement of prana in the body, you know, which builds up that viveka, that builds up your discernment, that you say, oh, I know now that back ones make me feel like this. And so you know when you need to feel this way, that you should do them and keep a space for them, even if you don't feel like doing them sometimes. That building up of viveka, that is the aim of yoga. Edwin Bryant made this point that that's what destroys avidya. Avidya's ignorance is the root cause of all other, root cause or field, okay, of all the other kleshas. So if we can destroy avidya, we can destroy all the other things that disturb the equilibrium of our consciousness. And I think that that's true on the individual level and also on the societal level. We just are a microcosm of the world within. Or the world within us is the microcosm of the greater world. There really is no separation. Now, from that seat of your true self, from the seat of your true splendor, inhale. Consciously use your inhalation to bring this awareness of your true self that you become more and more in contact with through your practice of yoga, with you as you go about your work in the world. So everyone's in legs up the wall. So you're going to push yourself a little bit away from the wall, bend your knees, roll your shoulder bones back, come all the way up, and sit up straight and tall. Close your eyes and fold your palms together at your heart. Just observe the effect of your work. Observe it from every layer of your being, from the physical to the most deeply spiritual. In gratitude to the benefit you receive from your practice of yoga. In gratitude to the benefit of the people and the opportunity to practice yoga with it. And also in gratitude for the fact that you're going to see a really cute puppy when you open your eyes. Namaste. Okay. All right, everyone, I'm going to unmute. Here he is. This is Moose, but he needs to go outside and pee, so he can't stay very long. But here he is. He weighs like 31 pounds already, and he's only 10 weeks old. Isn't he adorable?
That promises it, man.
Okay.
Huh?
That promises.
Yeah. Isn't he cute?
Oh, he's too cute. Oh, I'm in love. Oh, look at those.
All right, Moose. Go ahead and go with Jeff, because you have to go.